Hello guys, this is Pz.Kpfw.III, and today's video is going to be a post-build review of this kit, which is Dragon Pz.Kpfw.III, the Sturm Infantry Geschütz 33, or if you want to say the full name, it's like Schwer Infantry Geschütz 33 aufgestellt Panzerkampagnen 3 Zipse, but I like to call it a SIG-33B because my German is terrible. So yeah, we're going to look at this kit, how it was like to build, and any things I did, updated or improve it or anything like that. And I'll give you my thoughts about how good the kit is, and basically this kit is very good. Firstly, I'd like to point out what I did to the kit to, I guess, improve it or change it in any way. First thing is I added the Kaizen Winterketten tracks, which are these wider type of tracks. The kit gives you just standard with Magic Track Panzer III 4 tracks, and they're good. They're Magic tracks. They're much better than any other like a rubber or DS option that you often get in kits. I went with these because I wanted Winterketten to make it a tank that fought in Stalingrad, and I found some photos of them with Winterketten, and it looks really cool, so I did that. I also added photo etch tool clamps for the axe, and for the on the other side there's the jack as well, so you can see there's the tool clamps here, and the end piece there where it slots in. The actual photo etch for the fire extinguisher is in the kit though. And on the other side as well, there's photo etch tool clamps, quite complicated. For the jack as well. And these are Alliance Model Works tool clamps, and they're very good. They're actually like workable. You can actually use your hobby knife and like open and close them. It's really awesome. I use them because they look good. I want to try them out, and also because this tank only has 2 tools. Like I said, it's 3. You got the fire extinguisher, the axe, and the jack. That's all you get. So I didn't have to do very many tool clamps to do the entire setup. I guess I didn't do the tow cable in the back, but whatever. I didn't have anything for that. I also, one more thing I wanted to point out is I added the wiring on the front here for the headlight. As you can see, there's a little bit of red wire there for it. They don't give you anything for that in the kit. Some of the Dragon kits do. I'll give you a little piece of plastic for it, but it looks pretty bad. So that's a little piece of a headphone, or I guess earbud. I have an old pair of iPod, like first gen iPod earbuds that died a horrible death from like just old age. So I actually cut them open. That's one of the cables on the inside that I guess just supplies the magical sound power to your ears. So I just kind of super glued it in there. It's super flexible, and it just kind of wraps around and goes into the front headlight where the front headlight would be on a normal Panzer III. So overall, the kit is very, very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I have built many Dragon Panzer IIIs and SIG-3s, so the lower hull is all very familiar to me. The wheels and everything, the tracks. It's all the typical method where you just have to kind of put everything together. It's not that hard. Built a little bit of seam lines to the tires, but typical stuff. You have the photo etch rings inside the either wheel there, which look good. This kit actually gave you the full ones, not the more modern style where they actually give you like each ring is 3 individual, kind of like 1/3 triangular, or not triangular, round pieces. This is just nice big rings. You just slot it in. Looked very good. The rear of the hull, they give you a nice photo etch deflector piece, which I'm not sure was actually present on these vehicles. I guess I can only find a photo of the one in Kubinka. It doesn't have that on there, but they often fell off. I put it on anyways because it looks pretty cool. You have to bend it slightly into like a kind of almost like a curved shape. So I kind of rolled it against like a hobby knife to just get a little bit of a curve on it, and I also bent it up a little bit. And I guess one more thing I probably should have mentioned that I did was I added these little tiny chains to the bottom of those retention pins for the tow cable mounts on the back here. Oops, I just broke that off. Whatever, I'll glue it later. And there's also the same thing on the front as well. As is typical on these Dragon SIG-3 Panzer III kits, you have very nicely molded fenders with great texture on them. The photo etch they give you for the fire extinguisher there is very good, and it goes nicely. I guess the plastic mold-on straps aren't that bad. They could be better, but they're honestly pretty good. And the axe, well, I told you I didn't put it on. I put on the tool clamps there. It could make it look a little bit more detailed. On the front of the hull here, I guess you got like a new fender support pieces to go in here with some photo etch. The photo etch is a little bit, it's just, this whole thing was a little bit fiddly to put together. The photo etch seemed to be a little bit too long, I believe, so I had to cut off a little bit of the back, kind of where that section meets up with the, it's kind of like right in here. I had to kind of shorten it a little bit to get it to fit with the actual the arm here, which is supporting the fender, and also that arm kind of wanted to pop up a little bit, so it was hard to kind of clamp it down to get it to glue nicely, but I managed in the end. This is pretty alright. I guess it's just an interesting feature of the vehicle that they had to add another fender support in the front there because the rest of them are lost under the superstructure. They give you that track mount on the front here. It's an option. You don't have to put it on because some vehicles didn't have that track piece in the front there where you can put spare tracks on. And once again, these tracks are not what came in the kit, but the kit gives you plenty of extra so you can actually put them on some of the tracks that come in the kit. You can put them on the front there if you'd like to. The machine gun is very nicely molded. As you can see, the end of it is kind of cut a little bit. It looks good. And I guess you get some nice photo etch here on the gun. We'll look at the gun later when I actually take off the superstructure. But it looks good. And you also have a nice piece of photo etch, as well as a plastic option for this piece down here, which kind of slides up and down and covers the bottom of, I guess, the hole where the gun comes out of. The photo etch piece is much thinner and more in scale than the plastic piece, which is quite large. But the one thing is, it was almost like, I might be able to see, it was like a hinge detail molded up there at the top. The hinge, I guess, because the hinges, they kind of, one end of the hinge will kind of loop into the other end of the hinge, and then the pin goes through and holds it together. The plastic option obviously has those little, I don't know how to describe it, but like the pin detail, or the area where the pin would slide through, is not really present on the photo etch option. So I'd use a little bit of styrene rod to kind of rebuild that area where the loopy, well, I don't know, kind of like the hinge basically wasn't really, the actual rounded piece of the hinge wasn't very present on the photo etch part. It was only really on the plastic piece, so when you put them together, it looked good, but I went with the photo etch option. So I had to add a little bit of styrene rod to rebuild that detail, if that made any sense. I'm usually horrible to explain these things, but it's very, very minor, so I didn't really care about it anyways. On the rear of the hull, we have nice tow cable. Plastic one at least was pretty good. That's what I've used because most of it's hidden by the boxes. They also give you options. They also give like the plastic tool clamps empty, and then you can leave them empty with no tow cable, or you can also use a metal tow cable that's supplied and wrap it through all those, but that would have been a pain in the butt, and it probably would have come out looking worse than the plastic one if I would have attempted it. So I just went with the plastic one. It looks good enough. It was a little bit flashy in some spots, so I kind of had to scrape it away and recarve in the actual, like, like the cable texture basically. But it looks good in the end. These big stowage boxes in the back, I have not glued them on because I want to access the engine deck for painting, weathering, also mainly painting the tow cable. So what I've done is I've actually used some Wilder masking fluid, quick mask, which I just kind of just glues them on temporarily, but you can very easily pop it off, and since it's a rubbery material, you can also peel off that glue material and make sure you get everything painted nicely. I also managed to dent up the box here a little bit just by bending it by hand, so that was pretty useful. They're flexible enough and thin enough that you can actually do a little bit of battle damage, even though they're plastic and not photo etch. One more thing is they also get the option of using photo etch for the triangular kind of like fender support pieces which go behind the actual fenders themselves. And as usual, I went with those because they look good, they're nice little detail, and they're very easy to do. And since they're mostly hidden, even if you're a beginner, the cleanup is not really required because you can't really see most of the thing anyways. One last thing I'd like to point out in the engine deck area, or I guess more like two things. First of all, minor thing, they give you a photo etch option to replace the molded on plastic kind of like legs for this little spare tire mount with photo etch ones, which make it sit much more flush to the engine deck, or I guess the fender. I went with those. Not sure if it's more realistic to do that, or go with the kind of s.IG.33 ones, which kind of stick up a little bit wider, so the actual disc bottom area here is actually lifted up a little bit. But since they gave me that option, I figured it might have been more accurate. It's very hard to find documentation of these vehicles. There was like 24 of them, and only one survives today in Kubinka, and the photos of it are very poor, and it seems to have been kind of rebuilt, and over the years hasn't really survived very well in its original configuration. So yeah, photo etch option there was pretty easy to go with. And the other thing is, if you actually look closely at the legs of these toolboxes in the back, or stowage boxes, you can see that they actually kind of go over top of the edge of those engine deck hatches. So I doubt that's how it was in real life, because now you're blocking access to the engine deck hatches to maintain the engine. Also, the engine deck hatch kind of in behind here that's where they refuel the thing. So the fact that this kind of covers it slightly, the actual leg, when you glue it down, actually goes over top of the edge of that slightly, is obviously not realistic. I had to do a little bit of modification, thinning down the legs, and it got pretty okay on the big box at the back there, but the smaller guy up here, the legs are still kind of covering up the hatches there, which bothers me a little bit, but whatever, nothing much I can do about it. It's obviously not right because, like I was saying, you need to be able to access the engine to maintain the vehicle. I don't think cutting off these well-known boxes every time would be an efficient means of adding stowage to your vehicle, but whatever. Moving on to the superstructure, the whole thing was actually done quite interestingly, where they did a three-way slide mold. So the sides and the rear and the roof are all one big piece, and you basically just put on the front plate, which actually fit very well. So there's not any gap where the seam, or I guess the weld seam meets. There's a weld seam molded on there, so it actually fits up very nicely with the front plates here, both of them, because there's bolted on armor as well. That fits very nicely. I would have wished though that the whole rest of it was not done as one piece, because that makes it you can't remove the roof to paint it. You have to take off the entire superstructure instead, which is a little bit tricky, and it would be much easier for painting if you actually just could pop off the roof and get inside there and paint up. But since the interior is quite lacking and the interior of the hatches is also kind of bad, I'm not going to actually do the interior on this vehicle. I'll talk about that later. Also in the front here, you can see that there's also like this kind of shieldy thing that slides up now with the gun. It's not actually fixed to the gun in any way. I guess you're supposed to kind of pick an angle that you want the actual gun to be sat at, I guess. I've got it a little bit higher than horizontal just because it looks kind of cool. And then I just glued this piece here in place, and then I also just then glued the foot wedge part I was talking about on the bottom there at the right angle where it would just kind of sit, because it just kind of, I guess, scrapes up and down on the front of the superstructure there, on the front plate as the gun goes up, and this piece kind of slides with it. But like I was saying, you do get some very, very nice weld seams on the top there, which look beautiful with a pin wash. And you also have some little tiny metal pieces to go inside, almost like the back of that little, well, no, it's basically a shield for the gun sight. It sticks up off the roof there. It's a little pre-formed photo etch metal, or I guess more like maybe it's like a tin or something like that. Little bars there to cover up the back of it, which looks very, very good. And the pre-molds, or the pre-shapes, you just pop them right in. It looks really, really good. They also provide you with a very nice photo etch part here for the antenna mount, which is a flat strip of photo etch. You have to just fold up into a boxy shape. Looks very good. Then you have the standard two-part antenna with the base and the top piece here. And it's a little bit overscale in thickness, I'd say, but it's probably one of the best ones I've seen. Often you can see them much thicker than this, but this, it is quite thin. It tapers nicely to the top there, so it looks good. So I kept that. I didn't slice it off and replace it with styrene rod on this one because it's acceptable. It's very good. So now we're going to attempt to take off the superstructure. It's a little bit tricky because the gun hole basically is very small. Just going to kind of just wiggle it up. You also have to get over top of the periscope, which sticks through that little hole there, and over top of the front light here as well. So you're going to kind of cant it down. Get the rear light up inside the superstructure, or sorry, the front light up inside. And then once you get the rear over top of the periscope, then you can kind of drop it down and slide the gun out the rest of the way. There we go. So yes, the interior of the superstructure is empty. All you get is the machine gun, and as you can see, I didn't even bother putting the whole thing on there. I just have like the top cover and the barrel basically. But they give you like the full machine gun with a full back end and a little ammunition bag and everything like that, so it's pretty good, though you can't see it because there's no front hatches on this thing. The gun assembly is quite impressive, honestly. It looks very, very good. Probably because they have had to mold this already for things like the Gorilla 15cm howitzer on the on the Martyr 38 style hull, basically, as well as also, I guess, on things like the Sig-33 infantry gun, and also the Bison, which is just that thing on Panzer I. So they have a very nice molding of this thing already. Though they give you actually two sets of sprues, and they use parts from mostly one, but a couple of the other ones, so you get like a slightly different options in some locations. So you almost get like two full gun assemblies, and you kind of use half and half to get the, I guess, an accurate gun for this thing. And I didn't really do very good cleanup on most of these parts, just kind of cut them off, scrape them out a little bit, but there's still some seam lines and stuff like that. That's because I'm not going to show off the interior. I just decided to build up anyways because it looks alright, and I just kind of want to show it in the video for you guys. But as I was saying before, the hatches are lacking on the interior. I'll show you that now actually. The rear hatches on the superstructure, when you open them up, there should be handles and stuff on the inside there, and there are not. You can see there's almost like little holes for them, but they don't give you that in the kit, so that's kind of disappointing there. And then the top hatch here actually, which is only accessible from the inside, I guess it's more like a something that the commander could poke out of. The you can see in the back there those big kind of grooves in the, I don't know if that's accurate, but it looks horrible, so I don't want to show off the edge, like the visible edge in the back there where those kind of grooves are for where underneath the hinges. It just looks kind of bad, so yeah, whatever. I've left the hatches off though in case I figure out if that is accurate. I can just kind of, I haven't glued them, so I can just kind of open them up and glue them open again. But they fit nice and snug, so you can just kind of leave them like this. Also, if I leave them separate, it might make it easier to get some nice chipping effects on the edges there. I will just let you look at the gun assembly here for a couple of seconds because it is very cool looking. The metal barrel they give you, there's no plastic option, it's just a metal barrel, and it's very good looking. It does have rifling on the inside, and the photo etch pieces on the bottom are actually very simple. There's only it's a bottom piece which you fold up into like a U-shaped trough. Those flat on the bottom, you fold up the sides, and it covers the whole thing there. You also have a front piece here, which you fold over on the top, and that kind of finishes off that kind of trough or whatever. That kind of just covers up the recoil. Thing on the bottom, I guess, is just some basic armor, almost to like protect the vehicle from getting shot at. Don't want to destroy the recoil mechanism or something like that. Looks very good. There's some nice detail in here. It's almost like a travel lock at the bottom there. I'm not sure if that's actually what it is, but you can see that these can actually pop into the little rings there. It must be some kind of travel lock internally in real life. You also have the travel lock on the outside there, which you can mold, or sorry, you can place up or down. There are some quite thick seam lines on the part. Not much on the vehicle in general, but there were kind of bad seam lines on that part, so it was a little bit finicky to clean it up. Especially because it's molded in one piece with those kind of rods in between, so it's a little bit difficult, but it was doable for sure. And more looking at the inside of the gun there. It looks really cool. I wish I could show that off, but sadly I cannot because the rest of the interior is non-existent. There should be some ammo boxes down there. There should be ammo storage down here somewhere. There should be radios on the side here, because obviously there's a radio antenna, so there should be radios in there. But they don't give you that. I suppose I could maybe cobble something together with the interior components they give you for the s.IG.33, because the actual floor and the gun mount is from a s.IG.33, but the gun itself is obviously much larger. So they gave you some interior components which you could maybe work with, like I was saying, all those radios for the s.IG.33. I could plop them in the side over here if I wanted to, and I probably would if I was going to leave the hatches open, but like I'm saying, I'm not going to. One more thing I would like to point out is that the periscope they give you in the kit, they have two. There's a really long one and a really short one. The short one goes down to about here, and the long one goes up to about here. The short one doesn't clear the roof, so it's not sticking up through that weird little cagey thing on the top of the superstructure. And the long one is about the same length that the other one is short, but too long, so it hits up against the roof. So I took the longer one and cut off a little bit, glued it on there, and now it pokes through nicely at the right height to be a gun sight to poke through the roof. Not sure what that was all about. Maybe it's like extended in, I guess extended in like descended positions for it. Maybe it can go up and down if they're going to stow it or something like that. Maybe it's that way from other vehicles, but yeah, I had to modify the kit part very slightly just to cut off a little bit, glue it into place, and now it nicely sticks through the top of the, or I guess the front of that little cagey thing for the gun sight. One more thing I'd like to point out is that the gun actually, the gun assembly is very, very cool looking. It's very, very tight fit tolerances. So I don't actually glue the gun on here. I can actually like recoil it back and everything. It's kind of cool. I basically left it off because I want to be able to prime it and get in the bottom once I paint it up and stuff like that. But it's kind of cool how it can actually recoil back. And like I was saying before, you actually get a very nice, it's very hard to see. I couldn't really get it when I did the inbox review, but there is a nice rifling texture on the inside of the gun barrel, but it's very, very difficult to see. But trust me, it is there. Looks really, really good with all the photo etch on the bottom too. It's quite an impressive kit. guess one last thing I'd like to point out is that you can see that there's kind of like a weird gap where the superstructure meets the fenders. It looks kind of bad, I don't like it, but when you look at photos of the real vehicle, the fenders are kind of all bent and janky, and you can see gaps there and stuff like that, so it's not too bad. They also tell you to like drill holes out on the fenders there, and then there's also pins that stick out on the bottom of the superstructure, so they kind of lock together, but I don't like to do that because it's extra work. And also you'll be able to see those pins obviously through the gap in the between the fender and the superstructure side there, so it would have looked bad. So I just didn't. I cut them off. I cut the pins off and didn't bother cutting the holes, and it just lines up nicely on its own because it fits nicely onto the fenders in the front of the hull. So you don't need those pins anyways. It's just extra work drilling holes, I guess. I don't know. So with that, we wrap up this review on the S.IG.33B by Dragon here, kit number 6713. Overall, very good kit. I definitely enjoyed it. Only things I found a little bit depressing were, I guess, I don't know, just basically the interior. I would have liked to show it off because it's kind of cool on the inside. It's a cool vehicle. These were actually rebuilt on s.IG.33 chassis, not Panzer III chassis. You can tell because there's no escape hatch on the hull side. They're kind of cool because they have elements from like Panzer III Aus H that were like the bolted on armor in the front and everything like that. But then the back is from like a s.IG.33 Aus D. Interesting vehicle. They're very cool. And yeah, basically the only thing, like I was saying, that I don't like about it is the fact that I couldn't show off the interior because the interior is quite simplified, as is kind of usual in Dragon kit. They usually give you the gun breech, and that's about it. And you're kind of like, well, I can't just show off a gun breech, I need to show off more than that. But then the gun breech is always so good, you're always a little bit sad you can't show it off. So it's just kind of how it is, whatever. But yes, very good kit. The things I did to it, you don't really have to do. You don't have to add the tracks. The tracks of the kit are very, very good. The only things I guess you would need to do are, add that wiring for the headlight. It's very easy to do, and you don't need to add the photo etch choke lamps. That was just me being experimentative or whatever with some photo etch choke lamps that I have in my collection. Yeah, good kit. I'd recommend it if you're interested in the vehicle. There's this one. They also make a very similar one, which is meant to be a later one. I think it's like 90% the same. They just give you some more spare tire mounts on the front. Because basically 12 went to Stalingrad and didn't come out. They were all gray, and then there was another batch of 12 that were, I think, last until about 44. They fought at Kursk and everything like that. They have cool tritonal camouflage, and if you look at them, they have like more stowage on them and stuff like that. So Dragon also makes a kit of that, which is just like the same thing. So I would assume that actually you might have like the reason why you have all those improvements for the gun breech there and like the slide mechanism might be that kit was slightly inaccurate, so they might have had to update them with that new sprue that contained a couple of very similar but slightly different parts for the gun breech and recoil mechanism. But honestly, those parts are so similar I couldn't even tell, and once you put that photo etch guide on there you can't see anything anyway, so whatever. But I assume both kits are equally good, and this one was very good. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And as usual, huge thanks to our patrons. We have Gary Wayne Bradford, Stephen Eldridge, Philip Kruger, Stanislaw Koyanek. Sorry, I cannot pronounce your name. I keep trying my best. I'll have to look up how to pronounce that correctly. Ricky from Ryan's Painting, Harry Ainsworth, Chris Course, Ian Sustrick, Johnny Foxtrot, Richard Ward, John Butler, Sam Murphy, Jihan Ju, Barry Olich, and Jun Yi, as well as Dr. EO, who supports me through PayPal. You guys are all super awesome and supporting me. Much appreciated. And it helps me, as usual, buying kits and stuff like that. If you guys seen videos, and also buying cool accessories like tracks and photo etch tool clamps that I can put on my kits to make them look even cooler. And if you guys are interested in those tool clamps, I will do a review, like a quick look at them and maybe putting one together. They're like 3 parts. They're really quick. A little bit fiddly, but it's kind of just addicting to play with them with a hobby knife and watch them like actually go over and latch, and they kind of cinch up on themselves because they're thin metal like the real thing. So if you're interested, I will do a little review for you guys of the tool clamps. But yes, they are not necessary to make the kit better, but they're kind of cool. So like I was saying, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. This kit is very good. I would recommend it. And I will see you next one. Goodbye, and thanks for watching, and happy modeling.